The big topic today is going to be the facelift project. So you might have heard a little bit about the UI changes that we're going to be making here. This is just a quick screen grab of all the things that have changed. Most of these changes aren't going to actually impact you as the developer, but it's just kind of good to note. The big thing that you need to know about is actually there's going to be a UI toggle, which is, you can see right here. That UI toggle is actually going to be set to off by default for 15.0. With that toggle off, the user won't actually experience the new version or the new UI layout while it is in the off state, which your libraries that you have right now won't actually change at all. And because of that, we're actually not asking you to change anything with your UI. We do ask maybe that you hit the button just to make sure that nothing crashes or you don't have any serious problems, but you really shouldn't because the UI should remain the same between the two. There's a ton of tiny changes about how things are laid out and that sort of thing. But for the most part, you're not going to be impacted in 15.0. In 15.5, we'll be asking everybody, or we'll be suggesting heavily that everybody change because this UI button will actually remain in the on state by default. So when 15.5 comes around, you'll want to at least start migrating to the new UI. And then by 16.0, the current plan is to remove the button altogether. So if you're not migrated by then, your UI is going to look a little rough compared to everybody else's. So real quick, I want to show this timeline here. So basically, this is where we're at right now, phase 1 for 15.0. There is an early adoption group that signed up to try to adopt to the new UI early. So we have some names of those people. So if you don't know who that is or what that is, or if you're those people, that's probably not you. So that's this group here is going to be migrating now, or adopting, excuse me, is the word we're using because it's not so much a migration option, so much a migration need as a change to like your UI. And then by May, we're hoping that the early adopters will have adopted, but we'll see. You know, there's some adopters that are going to take a little bit longer. Starting in 15.5, we're going to go ahead and switch over so that everyone's recommended to start adapting to the new design and the new UI. Again, because the UI toggle will be on by default, so users will have the new UI by default. And then you can see by this third phase here of the adoption, everyone's going to have to change because the toggle will be removed. So you can see here that the timeline for like how long the old UI is going to last is basically for over a year from now. May of 2025 is how long the old UI will still be available for, and then the new one will be available throughout. So, any questions on this so far?
No. Is there any way to provide feedback on this UI before it goes live for everyone?
You can definitely provide some feedback if you'd like. As far as the changes go, they're pretty well set in stone today, but if there is some sort of like thing that we got wrong or some sort of thing that needs to be changed, because it's off by default, we might be able to make changes depending on what the needs are before then.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about the look and feel. Well, maybe a little bit about the feel, but mainly how it functions, because it's not good.
Okay.
You made these new sub menus in the menu bar, and these do not function properly. They don't have any hysteresis, meaning that when you point at a menu item, a sub menu opens, you should be able to move directly to any of the sub items without carefully moving to the right first to access the sub menu.
Have you tried right clicking on those menus?
I tried the menu, and if you try to cross over from the main menu item into the sub menu, going like diagonally right and down, and the sub menu will close on you.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and toss a ticket at us, that sounds like something we could probably fix.
Mhm. And while you are doing this, maybe the existing drop-down menus would also benefit because they have the same behavior. If you go out of the bounds of any of the drop-downs, they will immediately close on you. And this has been infuriating.
Yeah, if you're finding that kind of stuff, I mean, we're always happy to hear about it. So make sure you do throw a ticket at us about those things for sure.
Maybe we will have a talk about this in April.
Yep. There will be a discussion if you're going to the EU Momentum. This is going to come up again. I just
Mhm.
want to make sure to get this out a little bit beforehand because I know that not everybody is going to be there. So,
All right.
cool. Next up, just one last thing to throw at you guys about what the expectations are. If it, we just want to make sure that your old UI is still working. And there are some changes in the migration guide that you'll see. Certain functions or methods were changed in accordance with the changes that were necessary. We think that there might be a little bit more effort, maybe 10%, for those UI changes now, just to make sure that like your windows are resizing and that kind of stuff. In 15.5, the documentation for what we expect out of your UI will be released fully, and then you can start adopting then, and that's what we would recommend. And then by 16.0, there won't be an ability for the user to go back to the old way. So you'll probably want to update your stuff. Any other questions on that?
Yes, it's me again. So, okay, the new font is an improvement, but I find it even harder to read than the old one. So, are there any efforts to support this kind of a high DPI scaling so that people who are getting older, like me, can still make out what the text on the screen is saying because there is absolutely no way to read some of the smaller items, especially the calculation window, which now insists on putting all of the ID numbers in italics, making things even worse. So maybe some scaling could be happening, user selectable.
Yeah, well, accessibility is a big deal to us. We're actually have entire sections of our new documentation on UI about accessibility. So if you were thinking that, yeah, there's issues with people, who are having a hard time seeing, and that kind of thing, I would love to have that in a ticket to have us consider because we definitely don't want to, limit people's ability to be able to read things for sure. And that's not something I've actually heard anyone bring up before. So yeah, that would be a good thing to definitely discuss. Anyone else?
No.
Alrighty. Um, as I mentioned, like there are a variety of changes to the UI that you'll see throughout the migration guide. If there is something that has changed for the facelift project, I've actually gone ahead and marked it so that it actually will mention that this is actually a change that is basically been put into place because of the facelift project. Most of them are pretty straightforward. You would probably be able to figure out that that's like what's happening, but just in case, that's why those were marked this way. Other changes of interest, there's been a couple of changes to blocks. We've just basically added a little bit of a change to some of the interfaces, which uh, the first one being, there's a new optional parameter for edit, and then we've removed a couple interfaces because we found that they weren't robust enough to give us good information. So we basically replaced the accept modify block in several alternative spaces with being a lot more um, robust about what is actually happening here and what sort of things are necessary to make it so that we can check those things instead, and then if necessary, make the changes that we need to do. So any questions on those?
Nope.
One last slide for everybody. COMs are actually changing to allow for part info to be added to them. This is talked about a little bit in the top of the migration guide. You'll see that they mention the part proxy, which I've highlighted here for your convenience. But you'll probably be, if you are interested in this functionality, you may be more interested in reading the new section of the migration guide that like goes over all the brand new features. But I just want to point out that there are a couple of COM changes based on this part proxy being added and a couple of interfaces having to change. And this is the last slide I have. So does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
During some initial sanity checking, we found out that something has changed regarding rectangle select. And it's not mentioned in the migration guide. So I'm kind of wondering what is going on. We have a few snappers that are crashing. Something called a rect 2D task. If I try to select any of those snappers with a rectangle.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So while you're going through things and you have any issues like this pop up, please do write a developer support ticket and let us know that you're having that problem. With all the information you can get, and then we can try to get those things adjusted and fixed and take a look at what's going on there.
Okay, so not a known change.
I'm not aware of that particular change myself, but that's not to say that I know everything. So.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Just as I said, but I'll just go ahead and reiterate, if you do have any problems or issues that come up, things that you feel like weren't properly documented, or changes that are breaking things that you're not expecting, like was just mentioned with the rectangular select, please do not hesitate to write a developer support ticket so we can try to get those things adjusted before the release. But until then, happy migrating, everybody, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.